Hey everybody, Lisa here. Here we are already in week 4 discussing principles of design. I really want to emphasize that this is the construction of all of these words that we're learning. So think composition. And composition is a word that I'll continue to reference, and hopefully it's a familiar word because it's something that we do regularly in composing sentences and composing music and any kind of language sets or communication sets are these composed dialogue, and that's no different when it comes to visual art, visual dialogue. So please make sure also to send me the artist that you're going to be presenting on, and I'm going to go over later in the week how we're going to be kind of doing a basic outline of these artists. So getting into the folder for week 4, we're going to see a few different presentations. We're going to see the presentation that discusses chapter 3 with an additional PowerPoint that goes over Gestalt. So this is something that I want you guys to think about in a little bit more depth of how experience influences how we see the world and how we're interpreting all of this visual language. This brings me to your post from last week. Exceptional post, by the way. I really enjoy seeing and reading all of your input on the conversation. Cindy Foley, that did the TED Talk, talked about creativity and how we teach for creatives. And I just want to emphasize the idea that you guys can take hold of that in your discussion posts as you so desire and feel inclined to do so. Think about how you can respond to these questions differently, and maybe that comes through something that's more performative where you have to record it, or maybe it comes through something that is more visual, so you can demonstrate by finding images that back that up. But you don't have to always do a written post. And up in the course info, you will see a tutorial for using Screencast-O-Matic, which is something that I will ask you guys to do for your artist presentation. So maybe this can be a tool that's actually something that you end up using more so to communicate in different ways than writing. Going back to week 4, I want to talk about, in brief, the idea that you guys are picking up the alphabet, this placement, emphasis, depth, perspective, and we're starting to add the principles. So taking that alphabet and now making words, sentences, stories, structuring that into composition. And this is something that's more complex to understand because in many fields of thinking, this all leads to content. This all leads to understanding differently these images that we're looking at. And this is something that we'll have to work to wrap our heads around. You will be responding to everyone's home art collection posts by listing a piece that responding to 2 classmates by listing 2 of the most notable elements, design elements, and 2 of the most notable design principles for each work. So for 2 of your classmates, you'll be listing 4 attributes in total that will be most relevant to that work of art. And then briefly describe why you selected that work. I think it's important also in your response, though I don't have it listed here, to talk about what is original artwork. And I will point out a few different posts that are good to make note of. And this is not a right or a wrong, it's just a discussion point. So let's break it down a little bit. What is original art? Is a poster of a replica of an original painting still original? Is a computer printout an original work of art? Is a collage of wrappers an original work of art? Where do you sit on this spectrum? Because that's really what we're talking about, is a spectrum of definition. And people reside in a lot of different camps in talking about what passes as original. Why is it important to talk about original artwork? Because I think our interpretations of artwork change when we know the artist's involvement in making the piece. And I think that art has a lot of power to what it holds in a lot of its tangibility and ways of making, that I think it's important to recognize not just whether it's original or not, but how the piece was made. I had the pleasure this weekend of heading into your neck of the woods. I made a trip down to Springfield, and on my way back, I stopped in Atlanta for the first time. You recognize this, anybody? This is from the Atlanta History Museum. And this was a piece that I think, a collection of works that I think are really great to see. And something that stuck out to me and that I'd like to share with you guys are memorial ribbons, or these really beautiful fringed ribbons that people would pin onto their uniforms. And in several of these cases, in particular, the memorial ribbons were for when Lincoln was assassinated, as seen in this image. So I took some images of this museum, and what I found out was that I had a lot of connections to this place through you all, because, oh, here's a few shots of this beautiful building. It used to be a Masonic temple. A section used to be a bank. It has a glorious history that I'm hoping that a lot of you guys know about and recognize. And a lot of symbolic elements. This is something that I thought was a beautiful collection of rural documentary. And in this, we even have Olympia High School students. So graduates, alumni, and I feel like it's a really vital part of thinking about how we can access art and how we can start understanding art, is by just understanding the pieces that are close to home. So I'm sorry this is hard to see, but does anybody know Gabrielle? So if you guys do, she's got this great little snippet in the museum in Atlanta, and I feel like it's a nice thing to note as you guys are wandering around or needing something to do. Just stop in and check out this great exhibition. But I will share with you later this week, probably at the beginning agenda for next week, an interview I had with Reagan King, who was the designer and collaborator on this mural located in the lobby of the museum. And this is a piece that I think has super strong design elements, great color palette, and is the perfect entrance point walking into this community-based museum. And it has a lot of history connected into it. It has a lot of research in doing it, and it also integrated a lot of the community members in making it. So I will touch more on that once I edit the video and our little conversation together. But they do have some information on Reagan. The artist is here, who I happen to have a studio adjacent to. So we sat down and were able to get a little bit more insight onto how this process worked. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with Palm Diner, but this was quite a lovely treat to walk into this old building and see this very historic diner with this great floor. I mean, great design work, great mirrors, great tables, great light fixtures. Oh, and that's my place. And I just wanted to share a little bit of this excitement I had over this discovery I had this weekend, and hoping you guys are familiar with this, but that we can start thinking about how some of these little snippets of home can really inform how you think about art, and especially when we talk about Gestalt theory, how you experience art and how that experience leads to an understanding. Have a great week. I want to let you know that I did put this little study tool, Study Stack flashcards, in here. It is not an obligation to fill out the cards and use them, but it will be helpful in starting to learn these different vocabulary as we continue to build upon our writing and discussion of artwork. I'll talk to you soon.